You ever have one of those stretches in life where everything feels ordinary? Not perfect, not magical, just steady. That was my life, right before everything unraveled. My mornings had a rhythm. Wake up before the sun, just like I did in the service. Old habits, they stick. I'd shuffle to the kitchen, grind the coffee beans by hand, sound filling the quiet house, the smell hitting me before the first sip even touched my lips. That smell, it always felt like home. The living room was always neat, minimal. Not in a trendy way, just functional. The way a soldier keeps things. Every object had its place, and if something was out of place, I noticed, always my wife would still be asleep most mornings. I'd sit by the window, mug in hand, watching the steam curl up and disappear into the air.
Ow.
The blinds would cut the sunlight into soft stripes across the floor. Sometimes she'd wander in, hair messy, wearing that old sweatshirt she loved, the one that hung off her shoulder. I can still see her smiling at me across the kitchen island that one Sunday morning. I was scrolling the news on my phone. She was making eggs. We didn't talk much, but it wasn't awkward. We didn't need words, or at least, I thought we didn't. If you'd asked me then, I'd have told you our marriage was fine. It's not fairy tale. Fine, but fine enough. We had our routines, our small comforts. Didn't see the gaps. I didn't hear the silence for what it really was. Funny thing about peace, you never realize it's fragile until the cracks start forming, and by the time you hear them, it's already too late. It didn't happen all at once. It's never. That obvious in the beginning, at first it was just her phone, always in her hand. I told myself, that's just how people are now. Scrolling, texting, posting, whatever. But it started to feel different. She used to leave her phone, face up on the table. Now, it was always screen down. She'd laugh sometimes while reading something. But she'd laugh from the other room, not the laugh I knew, not the one that pulled me in. This one was quieter, more secretive. It's like she was holding it. Close so I couldn't see it. I remember one night lying in bed, staring at the ceiling while she sat beside me, scrolling under the covers. The only light in the room was from her screen, flickering against her face. I glanced over. She tilted the phone away. My stomach tightened, but my brain jumped in. Don't be paranoid. She's probably just looking at Instagram still. There was this knot in my chest that wouldn't go away. The absences started small. Running to the store for milk and coming back 2 hours later, saying she was meeting an old friend for coffee, but never mentioning who. I'd ask casually, and she'd answer, casually. Too casually. Like she'd rehearsed the tone. One night, I heard her in the living room, phone to her ear. She was laughing, that same warm laugh she used to give me. But now it was just for someone else. I sat there in the dark, listening. My own house felt foreign. I told myself I was imagining it. That's the thing you want so badly to believe nothing's wrong. You'll lie to yourself before. You believe the truth. They say if you go looking for trouble, you'll find it. But I wasn't looking. It found me. It was a Tuesday afternoon. She'd left her phone on the counter, something she never did anymore. I wasn't planning on touching it, but then it buzzed. Once, twice, and lit up the name on the screen. Read, Mark. No last name, just Mark beneath it. Message, miss you already, beautiful. That emoji, the flexed bicep. Somehow it made it worse. This guy wanted me to know exactly who he was. Or worse, didn't care if I did. My hand reached for the phone before I even knew what I was doing. The screen unlocked. More messages spilled up like poison. Compliments. Little inside jokes I didn't understand. The kind of words you reserve for someone who isn't supposed to exist. And then, like a punch in the gut, my brain dragged up a memory her months ago, looking me in the eyes after I'd fixed her car in the freezing cold. She smiled, wrapped her arms around me, and said, "You're my rock. I don't know what I'd do without you." The words echoed in my head now, colliding with this new reality. I felt my pulse in my ears. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles ached. Wanted to throw it against the wall. I wanted to scream. But instead, I just set it back down. Because in that moment, I realized something far worse than betrayal. She wasn't mine anymore. I waited until after dinner. She was rinsing plates in the sink when I leaned against the counter and said, "So, who's Mark?" She froze just for half a second, but I saw it. The tiniest pause in her hands before the water kept running. "He's just a friend," she said, without turning around. Her voice had that flat, casual tone people use when they want you to drop something. "A friend who calls you beautiful?" I asked. That made her turn. Her eyes narrowed. "You're being paranoid. This is exactly why I don't tell you about my friends. You blow everything out of proportion." I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I just watched her. Years in the service taught me something. Silence can be more unsettling than shouting. She started talking faster. Words stacking on top of each other. Excuses, deflections, twisting the conversation until somehow I was the one on trial. "You've changed," she said. "You're cold. You don't even trust me anymore." I wanted to laugh. Trust. She was lecturing me about trust while another man sent her muscle emojis in the middle of the day. But I didn't give her that reaction. Kept my voice even, almost quiet. "I'm not the one hiding things," I said. For a moment, she looked away. Not at me, but at our reflection in the dark kitchen window. Two figures standing apart, the space between us wider than the whole room. And in that silence, I realized she wasn't trying to win me back. She was trying to defend the life she'd already chosen. I wasn't looking for him. If anything, I was hoping I'd never see his face. But life doesn't ask what you're ready for. It happened at the grocery store. I was walking out with a bag of essentials. Coffee, bread, nothing special. She was there in the parking lot, standing by a car I didn't recognize. And leaning against that car was him, tall. Fit in the way a guy looks when the gym is his second home. A fresh haircut that probably took longer to style than I spent. Getting ready all week, and that smirk like he'd already decided he knew me. She saw me first. Her face went tight. He just looked me up and down, slow, like he was taking measurements. Then flexed his arm, actually flexed, and said, loud enough for me and anyone within 10 feet to hear, "Don't worry, babe. I'll protect you." From him, for a second I thought I misheard. Protect her, for me. It hit me in two waves. First the insult, then the ridiculousness. I wasn't a threat to her, not physically, not emotionally. But here was this clown, puffing his chest like I was the villain in his little hero fantasy. My mind flashed back to boot camp, 20-year-old me. In the mud, doing push-ups with a full pack while a drill sergeant barked in my face. I remembered. Real strength. Not the kind you post on Instagram. I didn't rise to it. Didn't give him the scene he probably wanted. I just looked him in the eyes, held it a second longer than was comfortable, and walked away. Because I knew something Didn't men like him don't last long when the spotlight's gone? I held it together in front of them. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I didn't give her the fight she was probably expecting. But when I got home, the weight hit me. I shut the front door and stood there for a long time, just listening to the silence. That's the thing about betrayal. It's loud in your head. But it makes the world around you unbearably quiet. I walked down the hallway, past the framed photos, vacations, birthdays, moments that used to mean something. Each one felt like a lie. Now I didn't even look too closely. I couldn't. I sat down on the floor, my back against the wall. The hardwood was cold through my shirt. I dropped my head into my hands, and for the first time in years, I felt small. Service teaches you about loyalty to your country, to your brothers, to the mission. Marriage was supposed to be the same. We made vows, promises that weren't. Supposed to break. I'd risked my life for strangers, and here I was. Discarded by the one person who promised she'd never leave my side. I thought about every sacrifice the nights I was gone. It's the holidays I missed. The parts of myself I'd given without hesitation. All of it felt wasted. Somewhere in the middle of it, I realized I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't ready for anger. I was just broken. And the truth is, sometimes the hardest. Battles aren't fought on foreign soil. They're fought in your own home. There's a point where the tears dry up, where the questions stop circling your head, and all that's left is a decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to compete with him. She'd already made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. It wasn't about getting even. It wasn't about making her regret it. It was about me, my dignity, my peace, my future. I went to the closet and pulled down the old duffel I used in the service. The canvas still carried a faint smell of dust and desert air. I started folding clothes, not in a rush, just methodically. One shirt, then another. Each fold felt like reclaiming a little more control. On the dresser, my military medals caught the light. I paused, ran my fingers over them. It took me back to a dusty tent overseas, pen in hand, writing letters to my squad, telling them to hold their heads high, no matter the outcome. I remembered signing those letters with the words, "Respect is non-negotiable." That line echoed in my head now, so I packed. Not everything, just enough to walk out without looking back. A toothbrush, a few pairs of jeans, my boots, the rest could stay. Every zip of that duffel sounded final, and it felt good. I didn't tell her I was leaving. There'd been enough words. Too many, in fact, and none of them mattered anymore. Instead, I took a small sheet of paper from the drawer. No grand letter, no tearful explanations, just one sentence. I hope you find what you're looking for. I left it on the kitchen counter right next to the coffee maker, the same spot where we used to leave each other grocery lists and silly doodles. Something about that felt fitting. The house was still. I could hear the clock ticking in. The living room, each second stretching longer than it should. My bag was by the door. The medals were still on the dresser. I didn't need to take them. They'd done their job already. I walked through each room slowly, not out of sentiment, but to make sure I was ready, that I wouldn't second-guess myself halfway down the driveway. At the door I paused. My hand rested on the knob for a moment longer than I meant it to. Not because I wanted to stay, but because I knew the second it closed, this chapter was over. The hinges creaked softly. The door shut with a sound that felt both heavy and light, and then silence. I didn't look back. The first morning in my new place, I woke up to sunlight pouring through the blinds. No muffled tension in the air, no heavy silence. Just space. It wasn't much, a small apartment with scuffed floors and mismatched furniture, but it was mine. Every corner, every shelf, mine. I started running again, not to escape anything, just because I could. I'd lace up my shoes before the sun was fully up, feel the cool air bite at my lungs, and watch the city slowly come alive. There's something about pounding the pavement that reminds you you're still moving forward, even when your mind tries to drag you back. I reconnected with old friends, guys I'd served with, people who'd seen me at my worst and still answered the phone. We'd grab coffee, trade stories, laugh about stupid things from years ago. That laughter. I didn't realize how much I'd missed it until it came back. The days started to feel less like something I was surviving, more like something I was living. I still thought about her sometimes, about the way it all fell apart, but those thoughts didn't hurt the same way anymore. They were just reminders, proof that even when someone takes a piece of your life, you can still build something whole out of what's left. One morning, on a long jog, I looked up and saw sunlight breaking through a bank of dark clouds. And for the first time in months, I actually stopped to appreciate it, because it hit me. This was my life now. And I was okay. It's strange. Thought I'd carry the weight of it forever. The betrayal, the humiliation, the way it ended. But time has a way of sanding down the sharp edges. I don't feel anger anymore. Not even sadness. Just perspective. She made her choice, and maybe in her mind, it was the right one. Maybe Mark really is her protector. Maybe he makes her laugh the way I used to. That's not my business anymore. What I do know is this. Losing her forced me to find parts of myself I'd been neglecting. The man who values his own peace. The man who wakes up in the morning without a pit in his stomach. The man who's okay being alone because alone doesn't mean empty. If you'd asked me back then, I would have told you the worst thing you can do to a person is betray them. Now, I think it's letting them believe they're less than they are. I'm done. letting anyone, including myself, do that to me. I came out here today, to the edge of the water, just to stand still for a while. The wind's cold, but it feels honest. The horizon stretches out in front of me, and for the first time in a long time, I'm not looking back. Maybe she found what she was looking for. I did too, and it was never her.